Hello and welcome to our webinar on Matrix CMA. So today we're going to learn how to not only make a CMA in Matrix, but make one that is statistically correct. So there's a lot of times where I see too few comparables being put into a CMA, which leaves you open to statistical error. So we're going to show you how to do that. Now, before we get started, this webinar assumes that you have basic working knowledge of Matrix. So if you have not done the initial training video on Matrix, I suggest you do that. And I'm going to put that link up here for you to write down. So this is the video from the launch of Matrix last November, I think it would have been in September 2015. And it's the developer going over how to use the features of Matrix step by step. So just put that link in your web browser. The video is about 2.5 hours long if you haven't watched it. The best way to do it is to watch about 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes of the video, then pause it and then play with Matrix a bit. Just kind of learn as you go. With this particular webinar on Matrix CMA, we're assuming that you have some of the knowledge from this video. Now, if you are watching the original training video for Matrix, don't worry about when they talk about the speed bar. We're realtors. We're not programmers. We're not going to memorize how to type little strings into a field. We'll just use the forms that are provided to search for Matrix. So that is the link that you use if you haven't watched the original Matrix video. But for this webinar, we're onward, and we are going to sign into Matrix and show you how to do a CMA that is statistically relevant. So if you're with the Kitchener board, your login will start with KWKW. If you're with the Cambridge board, your login will start with CA. If you're not sure, if you've just started with the board, you would have been given a trifold brochure that has your username and your password in it. So to make a CMA in Matrix, the first thing you want to do is go to My Matrix, and then you want to come down to My CMAs. So when you click on there, then what you want to do is you want to start a new CMA. So we'll click there. So if it is for a particular contact that is that you send out, if you're working with a buyer and you're sending out auto emails to them, their contact information will be in here. You can put that in; it'll fill in their contact information on the CMA. Otherwise, you can fill it in manually later or add a new contact. But the key thing here is make sure you put something in the description so that you know which CMA you saved, because when you come back to the CMA, you're not going to know what it is unless you give it a label. So I'm going to give it for pretending we're possibly listing 456 Main Street. So a fictitious property, but show you how to do it. So we put that there, and then everything automatically saves as you do this. The next step after you put something in the description is you go to Pages. So if you look in here, there are a pile of things, and everybody gets confused to what do I put in my CMA. So there's a pile of stuff in here. On the right hand side, the bare minimum for your CMA, you should have a cover sheet, the CMA brief, the pro report, and then you should also put the CMA map in. These are a few extras I put in mine. I would always try to put in the market analysis explanation, just because it explains how the information is, how we get the information for the report and what the purpose of it is. Again, here's a couple other ones: benefits of using a realtor and where the commission goes. Couple things that aren't drilled into people's heads enough, but there's a pile of other stuff in this static here that is all stuff that really shouldn't be in a CMA, but more in a listing presentation. And a lot of these, if you use the eEdge listing presentation, there's a lot of this stuff in there that's done a lot better in eEdge. So this is what I include in my CMA. If you include these things in yours, literally to add something, you just literally click here and it comes up. If it's not in the right spot, you just go up and down wherever you want it to be in your CMA. If it's something you added by accident, just hit the X here and get rid of it. Once you have this in your selected pages, you can click down here and set as default, and then you never have to worry about selecting your pages again. So one thing to do is, if you're not sure what these things are, just pause the video and then go into your CMA and select these, select what you want for your CMA, and then save. So the next section is our subject property. So our subject property, if you're listing a house, you can always search for a previous listing to see if there's a, it'll basically, what this is for, the subject property is you type in certain fields and they show up on the cover page of your CMA. It's a lot of fluff and stuff as far as that goes. It really doesn't affect what your CMA report as far as your comparables go. So you can type them in manually. Or you can search for a previous listing. If you're working with a buyer, you can just type the subject property. You can just type the MLS number in there, and it'll fill in all the front page. It'll put a photo off the listing on the front cover of the house you're comparing to. But for this, we're just going to type manually since we're doing a fictitious listing. So we'll type the subject property in. So the street number, we'll put say 456, and the street name is Main. Street Suffolk Street. We'll say it's in Waterloo. I'm just going to cheat here and put the brokerage postal code in there because I don't know any postal codes out in Waterloo Province, Ontario. Again, if you have this information, you can. There, as far as a property photo, you don't have to put one in here. It's just extra, I call it fluff and stuff. But if you did want to upload a photo of the property, you could here. There are ways to, what I do is I go into Google Maps, go to Google Street View, and then I use a capture tool to capture, that photo off the screen to put in my CMA just to make it look nice. I'm not going to go over that here in my webinar just because it's different for a PC or a Mac. If you want to know how to do that, it is a little techy, but you can always book an appointment with me. Just email me at tech@kwgtr. That's tech@kwgtr.com, and set an appointment, and I can show you how to do that. So for this one here, I'll show you what it looks. I'm just going to upload a photo from an old listing of mine, just so you guys can see what it looks like if you do put a photo in there. So put that in there. So next, we go to our cover page. So the cover page, you've got your information down here. You could put the, if it's a potential seller, you put the seller's information here. So we'll call him Mr. Seller. His address is, say, 123 Main Street, so just up the road. He wants to buy the house up the road. City. Ontario. And phone number, say 519-555-5555. Again, you would put whatever relevant information you have. Now is the main part of the CMA where you go to comparables. So this is where we want to find the properties that are similar to our subject property. So let's go add from listings. And then what you want is what's currently on the market, what is sold, and possibly you can also show what is expired so that you can show, hey, these properties were listed for this price and didn't sell. Another thing too in my CMAs, I also show the active properties and say, look, these are fictitious numbers because they haven't sold. You could ask for $1 million for a property that would sell for $300,000. That doesn't mean it's going to sell for $1 million. So we go down here, and one thing we want to do is we want to do a map search. You can go by region if you know what region you want to go, but if you know the neighborhood, you can circle the whole neighborhood in a map search to get the most similar types of houses. So we'll go to map search here, and I'm just going to center in Waterloo here. Say it was in the Lakeshore North District where our listing was. What we want to do now is we want to go down here. You can mark things with a circle radius or a rectangle, or you can do a polygon. That's my favorite one. So you click on Draw Polygon, and then we can literally just click here. So we're just drawing a shape all the way around this area here. And then don't forget to click back at the beginning again, otherwise it won't close the shape off. So that's the area that our CMA is subject to. We hit OK. And then we'll say that our subject property was 3 to 4, but it's probably a 3-bedroom. We'll put 3 to 4 bedrooms. Say 2 or more baths would be the most similar to what our property is. And then I don't put a square footage in, but I'm going to select a square footage similar to our property when we go through our comparables. So we go down here, and so the type. So these are some fields that you can add to your system. So up here is the default fields. Some of these fields are already in the regular matrix search, but for some reason they're not in the search for the CMA. So you want to add style and type res to your CMA search. So literally all you do is go to add remove here, and then you would just type the word style, and you would click here and then add it to your selected fields. And then same thing for type dash res, and add it, and then those fields will be in your search for your CMA. So because we're going to say that our subject property is a bungalow. Again, you can differentiate between if it was a row unit that you were looking for or whatnot. Now we're just going to leave it at bungalow right now. Now if you notice here, there's only 19 matches for my criteria. Generally, to get a statistically representative sample, I want to have at least 30 matches in here. And then I also want to then, once I have 30, I want to pick the best 10 to pick for my CMA, just to have a lower margin of error. It's a lot better to have 10 properties than 2 or 3. It just doesn't give you a statistically representative sample. So since I've only got 19 results, I'm going to go back further than 6 months. I'm going to go back a year. Now this year, hard to say. I don't know if I'd really want to go back a year just because the properties have changed value so much. But again, this is the general method I use. You may want to, if you do this, you may want to shy away from the properties that are closer to a year, or figure there'd be a different adjustment for the price. So once we do this, we go back to 365 days. We have 37 matches, so we're right in that sweet spot. So now what I'm going to do is go to results, and I'll say that my bungalow is around 1,100 square feet. So I'm going to select the ones that are most similar in square footage size. Now again, while you're doing this, you're probably going to drill in to these. You can even change your view from member single line to the full thumbnail or whatnot. Select the ones that are the most similar. You're going to want to scavenge through these properties a little bit. Sometimes you'll have to look at the pictures to see what type of shape that they're in, as far as similar shape, similar, they call it normal wear and tear to other properties. And so I'm just going to select some that are close to the same value here. We'll pick that one. So a lot of different ones that are different than what I've got. Now I've selected 18 here. Generally you want to have about 10. So if I had 18 to select from, maybe I'd go back through the photos to see which ones in the approximate same type of I'm thinking of the word here, same type of condition as the subject property. But again, we're just showing you how to do this right now. So we'll go to add selected. So we've got quite the extensive list here once we've added to selection. If you look here, if you go to map, it actually shows you all the properties on the map so that you can show, hey, I am looking in your neighborhood. And then notice here adjustments and pricing are blacked out. There are different reports you can put in from pages right here, subject and adjustments. You can do it instead of CMA brief and pro report, you can do summary list and price adjustments. But again, I do not recommend doing that because if you're doing adjustments, you're doing similar work to what an appraiser does, and I wouldn't want to do that without having the my appraisals designation, as well as having all the books that the appraisers have to for that specific market that says this is the difference that you should adjust for if it's like a one car garage to a two car garage and all that. So that's why I always say just have better a number of properties in your sample space, and then don't make adjustments. So if we go to finish here, again, we'll go to view CMA. You can email the CMA as well, but again, I find when I email someone a CMA, I never hear from them again. I want to go and present it in person just so that there's no misunderstandings of the information. So if I go to view CMA now, depending on the time of day you do this at, if you do it around 3:30 in the afternoon, it gets very slow. So if you're ever running your CMAs, I try to run them in the morning, especially if you're doing it last minute, just before an appointment. You don't want it to be too slow. So if you notice here, you've got the picture of the property, you've got the subject property information you filled in, there's the seller's information, he's got your information on here, all your contact information down here, and then it has a summary. Notice here it also shows the days on market, which is kind of useful. If we go down here, again, I probably wouldn't normally put this many properties into my summary, but this is just an example. But then, even if you have this many, you can take a look here, and you've got a low and a high. So now normally I want my low and my high to be a range less than 100,000. Again, I haven't really done my due diligence here in selecting similar properties. I've just literally taken a bungalow that has 3 or 4 bedrooms, and then I just selected similar square footage. So you want to do a little bit more due diligence when you're doing a CMA than this. But again, you've got your low and you've got your high. So you can literally say, okay, we've got this range from low to high, from properties that are in the worst condition to ones that are in the best condition. Where do you think your house falls in terms of conditions in this range? So you can kind of more get to an understanding of what the house would most likely sell for. You'll notice in my CMA here, there weren't any active properties, so we don't have to worry about fictitious results and stuff like that. But again, you still want to, if there's properties on the market similar to theirs, you want to show what your competition is as well. So if we go down here, again, I always focus basically on the summary, and I work down in this section here, and there's a few graphs on some following pages. This here is for your client that wants to see all the details of the other properties. Again, you can leave this section with them for them to comb through. So if we go down here for all those properties, if we go down further, there is a section with some people learn better with graphic representations. So it's got all the selling prices here. It's got your high range, it's got your average price, your lowest range. Average days on market is important, just to know how fast the neighborhood is traditionally selling. Again, here's that nice graph about average price, minimum price, max price. So some people read numbers better, some people see charts better. So depending on what you prefer to show by. Again, down here, this is the benefits of using a realtor that I have selected in my report. There's that market analysis explanation. Where the commission goes, shows it's just not all going to the listing salesperson. Again, you could even take this listing salesperson and divide it down to your expenses and all of that, so it's not just like you're pocketing all the money. There's the map layout, and that's it for the CMA. So you'd print this off and go do your listing presentation and clean house. So as I was saying earlier on the pages, I generally do not want to use the summary list and price adjustments just because I'm not an appraiser. I don't want to claim to be an appraiser. I don't want to be held in a court of law to be an appraiser when I'm not, just from doing things such as these price adjustments. So if you are an appraiser, by all means, do your CMAs this way. But otherwise, I would just use the CMA brief and the pro report. And as always, if you have any questions or you want to go through this step by step, you can always email me at tech@kwgtr, and book an appointment, and we can kind of show you, how this process works. Or if you have, if you are completely lost, not sure what to do, as long as your CMA isn't tomorrow, of course, book it in advance, and I can show you a little bit. Each one's a little bit different. Sometimes what happens is that if it's a very unique property, you've got to take your CMA over a larger map area to find more particulars, but you're going to be combing through a lot of properties to find ones the most similar. So thanks for watching, and feel free to email me with any questions you might have.